People, Real Stories with Brittany Lee, and we are in, believe it or not, episode number 4. It has been a crazy ride, and I'm loving every minute of it. I wanted to bring somebody a little different in with me this month, a true wrestling fan. We're kind of kindred spirits, Mike, because we both grew up loving wrestling and taking every little bit of wrestling we could find and just eating it all up. Mike Buccolo joining me. Mike is the head of Immortal Championship Wrestling. Growing up, we both just loved wrestling. It caught on at an early age with us, and it sort of blossomed. And now you've got Immortal Championship Wrestling, and I love Immortal Championship Wrestling. So we're a match made in heaven. How did all of that start out for you as a kid? What were some of your first memories of wrestling as a kid?
Oh my gosh, you're gonna date our ages now here.
Oh, we probably already have.
Yeah, I think so. But I remember back probably later in the 70s, my uncle took me down to the Albany Armory for a show. And I remember seeing Andre the Giant teaming with Ivan Putski against the Moondogs.
Oh, God.
And I was hooked. I mean, from that day on, I literally, every Saturday night, wrestling would be on at midnight. That was the only time it was on, or Sunday, I think early afternoon, or maybe right around noon.
Yep.
So I would, as a young child, I'm staying up till midnight just to watch wrestling.
And that's how it was back then, though, Mike. That's how it was. It wasn't readily available like it is today. You didn't have Monday Night Raw or SmackDown or any number of other shows. You just had, if you were lucky, you had something from WPIX once in a while. You had Vince McMahon on the USA Network, possibly, if you could get it. I remember watching Glow Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling as a kid.
Oh, yeah, that was 80s.
Yeah, remember that? I mean, that takes you... I just remember being a kid and seeing those larger-than-life crazy characters up on the screen and being enthralled. Like, what in the world is going on here?
Oh, my gosh. And now you can literally watch it every night of the week.
You can. And with the WWE Network online, you can watch a lot of this old stuff. I remember, I don't know if you were a fan of ECW.
Oh, I used to go to it.
Oh, I fell in love with ECW, and boy, it was crazy back in the days of like Mick Foley and Terry Funk when they would do the dumpster matches and set each other on fire. And I mean, it sounds funny these days because you don't get to see that much anymore. But what a great time that was!
Oh my gosh! And I've worked with Tommy Dreamer, who was one of the founders of ECW. And I've worked with him a couple times, and oh my gosh, some of the stuff they put their bodies through is just insane.
It's a wonder that most of them are still able to move around. And I mean it well. Look at Terry Funk. Terry Funk, he's a living, he wandered around for years and years with probably every bone in his body having been broken at some point in time.
No, that's what a lot of fans don't realize. I mean, you've heard the old argument, wrestling's fake.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you see some of these veterans walking around, or barely walking or not walking at all, it takes its toll on your body.
Who would you say was your favorite wrestler over time? I know mine was Mick Foley. I loved Mick. I just thought Mick put his heart and soul into everything he did, and he just gave 150% in everything. And he was funny, and he worked a mic really well, and I just loved him. Who was your favorite wrestler?
There's probably numerous. I mean, I didn't really single out like one, like my favorite. I mean,
yeah,
there were so many just awesome stars growing up and old time stars, and I mean, to be honest with you, a lot of people probably never got to know him in his later years was Dick Beyer, the Destroyer.
Mm-hmm. I remember. Yeah.
We would stop and visit him every year on the way back from vacation. He has he passed away this past year, but he had a Japanese park golf that we'd stop and play around a golf, and then we'd end up going out to lunch with him and just sit there and take in all of his wrestling stories from back in the day, like being in Japan and building territories across the U.S., and it was just an awesome experience. So I mean, just to be able to talk to somebody like that and hear the stories.
A lot of wrestlers had just amazing stories. I remember wanting to, when the internet was first starting to kick up and you could look up anything you wanted on the internet, and I'd try and find out what their real names were and any little piece of personal life information about them, because these were people that I looked up to, and even being a girl, growing up being a girl wrestling fan was a little bit different, and people would look at me kind of odd back then in the days. But I just wanted to know about these people. These were people that I looked up to, and they sort of gave me this focus in life. They were something that I could really get into as a kid growing up.
Oh, definitely. I mean, like you said, that you're mesmerized by them, and they're like your idols.
And I was just driving by not too long ago through Canajoharie, and we drove by the CYC, the Canajoharie Youth Center. And I know that you grew up in Canajoharie, and you do some fundraisers for the CYC. How important was that for you growing up in your life in a small town?
Oh my gosh, that literally was my second home. I mean, I spent probably as much time there as I did at home as a child. And every community really needs something like that to keep the kids busy, off the streets, out of trouble. I mean, if it wasn't Cal Fowler ran the youth center back in the day when I grew up there, and if it wasn't for him, I don't know how much trouble I would have got in over the years.
And I kind of chuckle a little bit at that, but it's very true. It's so easy to get in a lot of trouble in a small town.
Oh my gosh!
They say big cities are just crazy, but when you're in a small town and you don't have that much to do, it's very, very easy to get in trouble.
And he was so involved with the kids. I mean, he would play kickball with you, dodgeball, bowling, and pool, and foosball. He would do everything. He was he's an amazing man. It was great. And to be able, like, when I started Immortal, my first show was for the youth center, so that made it even more special because I was able to give back to something that was a vital part of my upbringing.
And I believe that Dave and I were actually at that first show, and it was a great show, and it was a great night, and the kids were just so excited to be a part of it and know that some of these funds were actually going to something that they love so much.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And I had the privilege of just doing one this past October, the second one for them already.
And you do a lot in the community. You are a participant for the second year in a row of Stuff the Bus. As a matter of fact, just recently in Schenectady, you had Ring Wars for Immortal Championship Wrestling, and you collected a bunch of toys for Rozier Communications for our 12th annual Fidelis Care Stuff the Bus toy drive, which we cannot thank you enough for that. Last year you and your mom did such a great job for us last year, and you wanted to do it again. So thank you so much personally from me for doing that. And you do a lot in the community. What makes you want to do so much for your community?
I mean, as you know, growing up in these smaller communities, there's, as you said, there's not a lot to do.
No.
And for the smaller communities, the money isn't there.
Right.
Like I do fundraisers I've done them for the St. John's Fire Department. And actually, I have one coming up. It'll be my first show of the year in February for the St. John's Youth Center reached out, and I was super excited for that because I also spend time there.
Yeah.
I used to play basketball there all the time.
Really? So see, it's sort of like that paying it forward type of thing. You kind of, and that's how I look at things. You know, somebody's done something nice for me in my life, so here, let me do something nice for you now that I'm in a position to be able to do something like that.
Oh, like I said, it makes me excited to be able to do it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Immortal Championship Wrestling. How did you kind of get into wrestling to begin with? I know it wasn't your first dive into wrestling, but how did you decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to go for it?
I as you know, I kind of stumbled upon it. I was helping out another gentleman before I even got into the business. I promoted some shows for him, and I just seen as like it lit a fire under me. I'm like, this looks like it'd be fun, and so I'll touch briefly on how I got. That's how I basically got into it,
right?
And then I started a company with this gentleman. I mean, it was pretty much my company. Everything was in my name, and it was a lot of work, but it was fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, as you know, sometimes in business with partners and things, you don't agree on things.
Totally agree.
So I'm not going to go any further into that. And then after I had about 2.5 years with the former company, and then I started my own. And the nice thing when you're on your own, you make your own decisions. Mm-hmm. So if they're good or bad, all falls on you.
Right.
So that's what was the nice part, because as you've seen, I've built up such a following with Immortal Championship Wrestling.
It's just crazy.
Knowing that I did it myself.
Yeah. It's funny because I kind of compare that in a lot of ways to me. Dave obviously Dave's 13 years older than me. We've been together 17 years, but he was in radio long before I was in radio. And so when I decided to start trying it out and seeing if I could do it, I wanted to do this on my own. I wanted it to be me. I didn't want anyone to think that I was on the coattails of Dave. And so everything that I've done, a lot like you, Mike, is I have built everything that I have myself. From branding to the ideas to the show development to everything that I do, that's all on me, and I love it. And I know that if I make a mistake, it's still on me. But
exactly.
That pride that you have in knowing that you did this yourself, I get that, because I was in the same kind of situation as you. I wanted to be able to do it myself. And now I'm incredibly proud of myself for where I am.
You should be.
Thank you.
And the thing, like with me too, I mean, I couldn't have done it without the support of my family.
Sure.
My wife has been amazing, and she knows how stressful this business is, especially before I even had my other company. I was just stressed all the time. I mean, the
Sure.
littlest things, and I'm like, oh. But now, I mean, and my boys, they're a vital part of my company. They're my second set of eyes because I'm so busy, I don't get to watch all the matches.
Yeah.
And so I'm running around. And
I have seen you. I have been to several of your events, and you are running around like a crazy man. We barely get to say hello. It's so funny. But, let me ask you this, okay? A lot of people, when I interview musicians and bands, a lot of people assume that when a band goes on stage and plays for 3 or 4 hours, that's all there is to it. They're just, their equipment magically appears, their guitar and drum set magically appears, but a lot more goes into it. You take a 3 or 4 hour performance and it turns into an 8 or 9 hour day because they're always setting up. What is your day like on the day of an Immortal Championship Wrestling event?
Well, I'll give you an example. We left the house yesterday at 11 in the morning, and I literally pulled in my driveway at 1:30 a.m.
That's insane.
And that's just a show day, but there's so much leading up to it. I mean, you got to first come up with a show name, then you got to book talent for the show, and then you got to promote the show. I mean, it's a daily. I mean, this is more of a hobby for me, but it's a daily, ongoing thing. You got to be out there flyering. You got to be on social media, and you just got to promote, so that you build awareness. Sure. Because without any promoting, you're literally going to have a couple people there. And
it's no rest for the wicked. I know, and that's on top of your job. That's on top of all your family responsibilities and everything else that's going on. It's a long enough day, I would assume, on event day, but then there's everything else that goes into it too.
Yeah, like the event day though too, like the setup, and then then you got the show itself, and the show itself is such an adrenaline rush, and like the day after, because my back and neck are shot. So
yeah,
I'm literally laying in bed as we speak, recovering from the show because I can't move.
I know we're doing the podcast from. Well, I'm not in Mike's bed, but Mike's in Mike's bed. I stopped myself mid-sentence right there. That's a totally different podcast, Mike. But yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of wear and tear. Even if you're not the wrestler, I can't even imagine what these poor wrestlers deal with.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I go, thank God I don't take any bumps or anything, because I can't move for days after. I can imagine taking a body slam or a chair.
And these guys that you get and ladies that you get in your promotions, these are some very talented wrestlers.
Well,
I mean,
that's what I try to set myself apart from before. Even I pick and choose on who I bring in, and I don't want to. I mean, I get it. You're going to have some matches that aren't the greatest.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Sure.
But I mean, I try because I want to put on like the best possible show for the fans.
Yeah.
And so I'm fussy on who I bring in, and I bring in guys that keep the locker room moral up and everything. And I just want such a positive attitude to flow so that it flows out to the ring and everything. I mean, I tell all my wrestlers I treat them the way I want to be treated. I treat them all like family and respect them and thank them after the performances.
And it does. I think it becomes a family. I mean, we've been to several of your promotions, and everybody, we're all now friends on Facebook, and we interact.
Yeah, and I mean, look at them. Like, you guys are backstage a lot, and they're just also friendly.
Just nice, normal, down-to-earth guys and ladies, and Christina, one of the sweetest girls I know, and just wonderful, wonderful people, and they do this because they love it.
Such a match last night with her.
Oh, really?
Lady Frost and her was just phenomenal.
And they put their bodies on the line like you wouldn't, like just craziness.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you have coming up, Mike? Now, you said in February you've got a fundraiser event.
Yes. We just settled on a date. It's going to be February 15th at the St. Johnsville High School.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
For the youth center.
I am going to try really, really hard to get out for that because I just love coming out to Immortal Championship Wrestling. It's so nice to have, and honestly, it's so nice to have a regional promotion up here that has some really talented wrestlers. And when I go, I sort of observe everybody else, and it's fun to watch I don't know how to describe it, but I'll put it this way. If I were a 14-year-old kid and I went to a WWE promotion back in the day, and I was standing up and I was yelling and I knew all the characters and I knew their storylines, I see that at Immortal Championship Wrestling. And it's so much fun to watch, whether you're a 6-year-old little boy standing up in the front row, yelling and giving some heat to the wrestlers, or you're a 38-year-old man doing the same thing. Everybody's having a ball. And isn't that what it's all about?
It is. I mean, like I said, the biggest joy I get is just in the midst of running around, I always take time to stop to see the fans' reactions to make sure that everybody is having a great time. And as you know, a lot of times, I'm even after show's over, I'll go out as people are leaving and asking them if they enjoy the show, just so I know that I'm doing my job and my wrestlers are doing their job. I mean, if it wasn't for the performers and a lot of stuff behind the scenes, like my ring crew and everybody, they all put their heart into it. So it isn't just like me. I mean, it's the whole family that's done it.
It is. It's really great to see. So Mike, before I let you go, where can people get more information about Immortal Championship Wrestling and keep up with everything that's going on?
Well, if you go on our Facebook page, which is Immortal Championship Wrestling, I mean, I'm posting daily. I mean, the next couple months we're taking off with the holidays.
Well deserved.
Yes, I'm actually taking a deep sigh. It's been a crazy year, and the first year was a huge success, and I can't thank the fans enough, my workers, and just everybody involved. It's been an incredible ride, and I am so excited for 2020, and one thing I do want to mention, this is sort of like a thank you and get back to the fans, and I've teamed up with Heroes Hideout down in Colony Center. They do a lot of signing with athletes, particularly wrestlers. We are doing a free show in March at Colony Center.
That's fantastic.
And
How cool is that?
Already signed to be there is WWE Hall of Famers, the Rock and Roll Express. And one of my favorites, actually, he is one of my favorites, and I've worked with him once before, Hornswoggle.
Oh, my gosh. You're getting Hornswoggle?
Yeah.
That is so cool. Oh, my gosh. Now, I may have to make the trip out there for that one. That's going to be great.
Oh, it's going to be phenomenal. We got a couple more surprises we're going to be announcing, and we're expecting a minimum 1,000 to 2,000 fans.
Oh, that's going to be a lot of fun. I cannot wait for that. Thank you so much for joining me, Mike.
Oh, you're welcome. It was my pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you and Dave at a future show.
Same here. I cannot wait. It's Real People, Real Stories with Brittany Lee.
Well, I've done a lot of things, some of which I ain't too proud of, but it's my life and who I chose to be. So I've done a lot of drinking, and I've smoked my share of green, but when I flipped my truck, I was sober as could be. Yeah, this is my story. The truth behind me.